Alrighty guys, welcome back. Last time on the channel we installed this nice coilover bar in the rear and our coilovers right there. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be mounting the fuel cell. So I've done a little bit of preliminary measuring, and I'll take you under the car here. The idea is we are going to build a bar that kind of drops down below the frame rail that goes across, and we are going to mount the cell onto it. Then we will have to come up with a mounting system, obviously at the front, something similar. And my thoughts here are I want the cell a bit lower. I don't want it super high up in the tank. I want it really drop down. So the cell and the battery are going to sit back here. So I'm just going to get straight to it. Enjoy. All right, so here's our bath bar. See, the plates are welded on each side, and we'll go put it in the car. Okay, our new bar is in, and now we just have to kind of connect the dots and get our fuel cell in here. So I will tell you this much, I did have another bar that I built with saddles and all kinds of fancy stuff that mounted on the bottom of the frame rail and was down lower. It was a little too far forward. I got ahead of myself. Cell didn't fit properly, so I had to cut all that out. So that's why I've gotten so little done, because I wasted a whole bunch of time there. But as you can see, these two bars are actually fairly close in height now, and we have enough room between the two bars to drop the cell in between it. So we're gonna run the cell tied up against this horrible piece of plate that I've ruined, and it should be good. And one pro tip for you, MIG welder, welding against frame rails, is a lot better, because I got super frustrated and angry trying to use the little guy over there and TIG weld up against here because I had no gas. Definitely not doing that again. So this is going to be essentially a MIG job from here on out. I'll try to TIG onto the bars, kind of the spots where you can see, so it looks pretty. So yeah, I'm going to mock the cell up in the car now, and we will see what we can do with that. Alrighty, so we've got the fuel cell in the car, more or less where I want it, and essentially level. We can work on the fine details later. But now the trick is going to be how we build something to support the cell. So obviously we've got the sump back there. Ultimately I want to run my lines kind of out of the back of the sump, and I'm going to mount the pumps down here. I'm going to have to get a second one of these guys. So what that looks like is I need to essentially build a piece of tube that comes down to the bottom, along the underside of the tank and up to the top, and the tube will sit on the inside of these brackets, and then we will have some tabs off the tubes that bolt the cell down to it. But the cell will essentially be supported on the tubes, and then the tabs just hold it there from moving around left to right. So yeah, I'll take a few measurements here and we'll start cutting some tube. Alright, so I did some measuring, and I actually had to double check myself by putting a level under the two tubes, but miraculously these two tubes sit at exactly the same level at the bottom, which is awesome. So I want this bar to drop down 3 inches. So this piece is essentially 4 inches from where the notch touches. This one as well will be 4 inches. We'll have some 45-degree miters in there, and then we're about 19 1/8 on center, which I will confirm after I have both of these pipes in and plumbed. All right, so because we know we want 3 inches essentially from the inside, this is really to the bottom of our notch, how I've marked that on the pipe. Cut ourselves a short piece with a 45, have my set square up here, moved it so this bottom edge is flush. Obviously I can't do this with one hand, but I already marked it, and then our 3-inch mark comes in there. So now I know that's the bottom of our notch, which is great. All right, we've got our piece of pipe cut. This inside mark, well, the only mark that you can really see where my pinky is there, that's my 3-inch mark. Outside of here, I have gone 1/3 of the pipe diameter, so 0.3 inches longer. And what we are going to do is we're going to use the milling machine to make a little notch in the pipe, because I'm not good at doing this manually. So lots of people can do this, I can't, but there's videos on how to do it without any special tools. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to square this piece of pipe up in the vise, and I am just going to notch it using the milling machine. 3/4 inch bit. This is going to be, needs to be a 1 inch, which I don't have, but I'll just have to smooth over the edges afterwards, and we'll see how it turns. Okay, so there is our notch. We are right at the line, so I will just take a flap wheel and flatten this out a little bit so it fits up nicely on a piece of 1-inch pipe, and then we will do it again. All right, quick little update under the car. I've got the rear tube essentially just hanging out here with the magnet. I've got the front with the magnet. I've measured the distance from that one to that one, and it's about 20 1/8 of an inch outside to outside. So I will miter that tube up and we will mock it up and see how it looks. All right, we've got these parallels. They are set at 1/2 inch, so I will essentially just mark along the pipe here, and that's going to establish a center line the whole way. Okay, I've got the pipe in the vise, and sorry, it's really hard to see the angle here, but you'll see I've got the line marked with 1/2 inch. I marked the vise 1/2 inch off the base there. So this line now, I can cut this 45 and I can rotate the pipe 180 degrees, and I'll make sure that those two 45s are phased perfectly, and that will make things a lot easier. All right, now one more thing, because I want this bar to be exactly 20 5/8 of an inch long, what I can do is I can measure from the edge of the bar to the vise, and I get this 0.776 inches. So now I know I mark the long end of this pipe at 20 5/8, which is the overall length I want. I make this mark on it 775 in, and then I just line up my mark on the bottom with 0.775 inches out, and my pipe should end up being exactly the right length. Okay, so here are my two marks. That one is the 20 5/8, and that one is where the pipe should sit against the vise. And this line, obviously, that's the one that I line up with the 1/2 inch mark to keep the phase of this bend correct, or this miter. All right, pipe is cut. You can see we pretty much split our cut mark down the center, which is unreal. There's the vise mark. The two bends now, or the two miters, mind you, are perfectly phased. The only reason I'm showing you this is because I wasn't doing this earlier, and that's why I had so much trouble building the first bar. So we will cut a couple more pipe and go on from there. All right, so what I got here is a piece of tape which I wrapped around the circumference of the pipe. And let me just show you something here. Just one sec. All right, so I wrapped a piece of tape around the circumference of the pipe and then divided it into 4 parts. So essentially mark a line, wrap it around the pipe, mark a line on the other side of the tape, unravel it, and then you divide this up into 4 pieces. Go back to your mark on the pipe, wrap it around, and you put 4 marks on it, and this is going to be for our notch. So you'll see, because I'm mitering this end, the notch has to be in the correct spot, obviously. So this piece is going to sit on a piece of 1 5/8 pipe. So I will mark out the notch and show you what I've done. All right, so here's what I did. I essentially put the pipe on here, and you'll see on the side here, that gap, it was like around 4 millimeters, okay? So on the pipe, I marked a 4 millimeter spot. Each one of these marks is at 4 millimeters, and all you do is you take your 4 marks that you had and you just connect the dots. These are just straight lines. What I'll do now is I'll take an angle grinder and I'll grind out all this spot in the middle here, and that will make the saddle for this to sit on. And then obviously there's a little bit of fine tuning after, but this works pretty good. And this is what really frustrated me yesterday, to figure it out. And once I figured it out, it's been going better. All right, you can see that worked pretty good. It's a pretty tight fit up. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for this. So what I'm gonna do now is I will tack all these bars together and we will go mock it up on the car. All right, got her mocked up. Now shout out to Princess Auto, which is kind of like Harbor Freight but the Canadian version. Got this new welding table for 200 bucks. It comes with all the clamps, fixturing. Those are V-groove clamps. There's spacers for them, bolt down stuff. But I can pretty much mock this whole thing up right here, tack it together, and just kind of make sure that I get the notches orientated right and everything, and then we can go try it on the car. All right, well, it didn't fit, so I cut it, and then I cut it too much, and then I had to add some back. But all in all, not too bad. So we'll put this in the car, and I guess we can start mocking up the fuel cell. Okay, and those are the 2 bars in there now. See, they are tacked up and they're going to allow the fuel cell to drop down. Now, unfortunately, the orientation of the tabs on the fuel cell isn't correct, so we're going to have to re-weld those, but see if we can fit it in here. Okay, first mock-up, obviously the tank is sitting on the sump. This sump needs to rotate this direction. Obviously, this whole tank will be spanned 90 degrees, and then those tabs will go on the sides, but you can see now kind of where the tab will mount. Show you under. So yeah, under the car, you know, we'll have to obviously center the cell on here, but we'll make some tabs off of here, and then that's where the cell will bolt to, and then the bottom of the cell is obviously going to be supported by here, and again that sump sitting down is going to be out here, and this is going to be further forward, so you know the sump is going to hang out right at this point here. So the interesting thing, well, it's not really interesting, but this tank is a square. So with this all the way forward, I know that the sump is going to sit exactly here. So that gives us a bit of space for some fittings. And I'm thinking my fuel pump, I'm going to need a second one of these guys. I'm thinking we'll make some more tabs under here, and we'll mount the 2 pumps right under here, and each line will come out of the sump and feed them. All right, so for the cell to fit in the tank, the tabs need to be on the sides at the back, and the front we can have the tabs facing this way. So what we've got going on here, I have welded on just some plates to build it up here, and then now I'm gonna make a little tab that comes off the side. And yes, it looks like a little kid welded that, but it's really hard for this welder. It's welding, this is 1/8 plate, 2 1/8. So I'm like preheating it with a torch and stuff. It seems to be working. It's gonna hold at the end of the day, but it's not beautiful. All right, so what this is gonna give us, you can see this end is obviously open. It's gonna give us a tab that's about 1.5 inches tall. The straight part will stick out, and this is about 2 inches long. So this will weld to that backer plate I had. All right, so this is our new tab, and yeah, it's just gonna hang out on there, and I will do my best to weld it around, and hopefully it sticks. All right, these are done. They look good from the top. They look absolutely terrible from the bottom. This little guy, he struggled. I mean, truthfully, it was probably me and not the machine. But yeah, that 1/8 plate to 1/8 plate on 1/8 plate, not good for a little guy like that. And someone like me who doesn't have a ton of aluminum experience, but they're there and they're stuck on, and the tank's going to be supported underneath with straps. So really these are for, you know, shear support side to side. So we also do have 2 factory welded tabs up here as well. So I'm not concerned at all about the safety of this cell. It's just kind of one of the ugliest things I think I've ever welded. All right, so we have now got the cell in the car, and you can see now it sits down nice and low, which is what I was hoping for. And under the car it looks like that. We've got 2 bars, and we'll just need to make some mounting tabs off of here. But I think that's pretty straightforward now, and overall I would say I'm happy with it. So yeah, I'm gonna make some mounting tabs for this, and then we will go on to the battery. Alrighty, so I have got the second tube welded on and in place, and I've tacked these in a couple different spots, played around with the cell. The idea now is that this bar is going to help support the battery as well. So let me put the cell in and we'll have a look. Alrighty, on to the battery box. Now I made this in CAD, and my buddy Blake Lyons over at Lyons Autocraft, who's actually going to be LS swapping a DeLorean soon and starting a YouTube channel, cut these out for me. And what I've done is, this is a battery box, and it's going to sit between my 2 rails back there. The tabs essentially clip in. So this should be a pretty interesting piece, and I'm pretty excited to try it out. So let me show you how this gets assembled. Alright, you'll notice these little square notch outs that don't look square from there, but the pieces essentially will clip in. And essentially I will tap this all together with a hammer, tack it all up, and we will have ourselves a battery box. Alright, so here we are. Got everything tapped together here. This is actually insanely good. Like, look at how the edges meet up there. pretty surprised this is working as nicely as it is. So I'm gonna go ahead and just tack this thing up and then try to figure out how I actually want to weld it. Alrighty, there we go. So what I did is just kind of a couple stitch welds, miscellaneous stitch welds and corner welds. Sorry, that chair is very noisy, but that's what we ended up with, and I am very, very happy with that. So thanks again to Blake. When he starts uploading videos on his LS DeLorean build, maybe I'll direct you guys over to his channel. He's just got to make one. And in the car, that's how this looks. It'll sit on this bar, and I'm going to make one more bar by my left index finger over there. But yeah, that's the basic idea. Okay, we're almost done with this nightmare. The last bar tacked in, which is this guy here. You can see the battery tray fits super nicely in there. I just measured it out. My fuel cell tab is going to go right there and right there. So yeah, that's pretty much how this trunk is going to look. We'll have to figure out what to do with this wiring and how to rearrange everything. Just a shot under the car, you can see the tray just perfectly hugs those two rails, and it is pretty much exactly what I wanted. Everything is dropped down nicely. Couldn't ask for better than it is. So it's taken me a very long time, but I'm totally happy with how this came out. All right, just making some tabs here to mount the fuel cell to the tube. So you can see I've got our mark, obviously, for where the tube needs to go. What I'm going to do is cut a whole bunch of thin slits with the zip disc, and then we will grind it out smooth, because I don't have a hole saw that size. And that is what that looks like. Now I will just use the grinding wheel essentially, and you'll see these tabs will just come out like nothing. Alright, tube is notched, so we can go and tack these into the car now. A bit of finishing work off camera, but this is essentially the final product. So you can see I got everything just painted in here. This is that trim clad hammered paint. Alrighty, so this is kind of the final product. So I went through, I painted the bars and everything in here with this hammer paint. It always works out super nice, and it almost looks like powder coat. So you can see we've got the battery sitting in the tray. I still need to make a little hold down for it, but that's no problem. The tank is in. You can see it's sitting on some mounting tabs I put. So that all turned out well. This thing sits nice and low, which is what I wanted. Our electrical panel we will mount over here somewhere. I have a ton of wiring and stuff to rejig back here. I also need to run some wires from the computer back. So I'm gonna have to figure out when I want to do that and how I want to do it. I also trimmed out the edges just with some aluminum angle iron, just to soften them up so they're safer. You can brush your hand against it and you won't get cut, and it just looks a lot nicer. Obviously there's still a little bit of work to do up at the front. I'm gonna need to build a firewall in there. I've just got a welding blanket hanging out there so it doesn't destroy my interior with all the angle grinder dust. But yeah, I think that's probably the next thing that I'll end up doing. This video is starting to get pretty long, so I think I'm just going to call it quits now. You can see I also reinforced the chute bar, just reinforced it back up to our bar here. So the chute is held on by the those bars over there and the struts, but I figured, you know what, while I'm back here, might as well throw another one on there. I removed the external fuel pump. We are going to be getting a dual hanger hat for this and running 2 pumps out of the tank. And I can modify it for a third if I need to. The only reason I want to do that is I don't really want to do it. It's just, I can either pretty much sell the pump I have and just go buy that dual setup, or add a pump to the one I have. So I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna get the duals. It's less work, it fits in the tank properly, it's just a lot easier, a lot cleaner. So yeah, we'll have to start doing some plumbing on here soon as well. But yeah, I'd say that's it's gonna be everything for this video. So this is a big process, it took a lot longer than I thought. I thought this was gonna be super quick and easy, but it definitely wasn't. But I also took my time with it and really wanted to make sure I had something that looked really good as well as worked really good. You just see logistically, like if I need to adjust my shocks, the extension, I can easily do it from in the car. It's just a lot easier to get at everything this way with everything low. You know, if I had the cell mounted up really high, it's just not quite as easy. So yeah, as always guys, thanks for checking it out, and we will see you on the next one.